Hello, it's Fran Davidson from psychicandenergywork.com.au and welcome to my monthly observations for January 2026, Part 1. First of all, Happy New Year. Well done, you made it, and don't be surprised if this is a very different year to last year, although you'll hear more about that in my observations about 2026 rather than necessarily my monthly observations, which is what this is all about, or at least the start of it. Part 1 always looks at the month that just was, December 2025. And I don't know about you, but certainly in my world, it seemed to deliver more, I don't know what the word is, clarity about what to do, the possibilities for the way ahead, how they might flow through or how the individual might help them take form. In other words, on one level, you could say December was a bit of a brainstorming month, but not only that, it was a place where perhaps things started to settle into position conceptually in mind's eye better than perhaps they had been. Now that again, if you go through to the website psychicandenergywork.com.au to the monthly observations page, in the first section where I write about December, I've talked about that as being attributable to the threes at birth number level that were in last month's chart. So in this video, because I don't want to just repeat that here, in this video, what I want to talk about is 3 as that place that is the beginning of manifesting. 1 is all about discovering self. Who am I? Yeah. Where do I exist versus the table I might bang into or the person outside of me? 2 is the place where we go public with our self-knowledge, our identity. Yeah, even our projections about life and what we're here to do or how things get done. 2 is the place where we go out into the crowd to bump around in that and to find out, okay, so were they a good idea? Were they as good as they can be? How do I position so as to stay true to what I know for me in amongst the world of other? So 3 in one sense is the first moment since creation, if we're talking about the cycle 0 to 9, yeah? It's the first point in the cycle of creation where we have gained sufficient experience for things to actually be reviewed, for the pennies to start to drop. That doesn't mean that none dropped before, of course they did, but 3 is a time that, again, you could say it is a time for ideas. It is a time for insights. Yeah, it's a time, as I said before, for clarity. And part of that is because, of course, 3 is flow. 3 is also creativity and therefore creation, therefore manifesting. Why do I use all these words? Because 3, and bear with me, 3 is also expression, and that's really important because expression is not just verbal or non-verbal expression between human beings or creatures. Yeah, expression is also affirmations, thoughts, ideas, plans. Anything we think is a silent communication. And even though we as humans might be reasonably convinced in a moment that only I heard it, the universe hears it the minute that we've formed the words, if not before. So therefore 3 is the place where perhaps we start to learn more about our affirmations, but also about our definitions of universe, of manifesting, of potential, of capability, yeah, and therefore a future. You know, what's possible? What's possible? What am I here for? Those sorts of things. Those statements in themselves are really curious because, of course, there are all sorts of models relating to manifesting and attracting. What's really interesting, though, is that often those models, not because I'm trying to denigrate anybody, you know, every model has a value, every statement has a value and a place, and therefore doesn't need to be denigrated. But 3 is the place in one level where self realizes that the universe is real, that guidance exists, because intuition is also a form of communication, therefore guidance. And therefore for guidance to be real, for guidance to be something that can actually happen, does actually happen, depending on the person you're speaking to. For those things to exist, for those things to even be a possibility that we'd entertain, there has to, of course, be a source from which guidance ushers, from which messages come. And of course, depending on your person, there'll be different models for that. Why am I talking about these things? Because on one level, models of manifestation sometimes carry with them, you could say, the assumption that in order to attract, in order to manifest, and therefore in order to achieve whatever self is aiming for in that moment, we have to lobby the universe. We have to even get in connection with the universe in a way that within that can be the assumption that, hello, the universe isn't already in connection with us. Now, that's really interesting because flow can be seen as life. Flow, manifesting is flow. So, yes, one way to view manifesting and flow is that the human needs to activate it for it to occur. However, on a spiritual level, the flow is happening irrespective of where the human being positions themselves with it or to it. Yeah. What I mean by that is, in those moments where we don't feel that enough or the right stuff is manifesting, it's not so much that that flow isn't happening towards us and around us or even through us. It's more that because of how we are connecting to the world of energy, because of where we're allowing our mind to position us, we are unaware and therefore we are not tuned into. We can't sense the flow that is already on hand, the flow that is already waiting to come in. So it's a bit like saying, you know what, I'd really like a delivery of something to my home. And there's no doubts about that. I'm really passionate about it. I want it to the very core of my being. But instead of actually opening the doors and windows, instead of it to receive that, instead of answering the doorbell when the doorbell rings, instead of setting up the home in a way that, hello, the postman or the delivery, the courier is, when they arrive, has a sense that somebody actually lives there. You mean it's not a practical joke. You mean there's actually a building there. It's actually like people live there. It's not a dud address. Instead of doing it that way, what we can do when we don't know that the universe is real, when we don't know that flow is already available, we shut down on it in a way that we're not engaging with it. It's not a case of whether it is engaging or wanting to engage with us. It's literally we just don't have our windows open to even sense it, to even let it in. And spiritual development can very much revolve around these lines. And what do I mean by that? The universe, shall we say, source, the divine, whatever you call it, on a spiritual level, it will often, shall we say, It will often use these aspects, as in the human wants, the human desires. Yeah, in other words, the goals, the things that are important to self. It will often use those things as carrot on stick. Connect to me and it'll flow. Let me in and it'll happen. Make room for flow to exist outside of what you can affirm or instruct, and it will occur. But because, of course, we're mental beings, because, of course, many of us, we live in cities or in areas where, hello, it's go, go, go. There are so many things to achieve and get done and just cross off the list, whether it's a bill, whether it's feeding yourself, tending to your children, whatever, that the need to connect, the need to acknowledge what you have already or what can come or even what is already on its way can often get squeezed out of the room and therefore the schedule. And yet this is the place where manifesting happens. December was very much a time that helped people begin, at least, to reconnect with the sense of, you know what? Flow's happening all the time. Flow is as wide can be. Flow is infinity wide. It's infinity long, which means there is nothing that nobody needs to lack, assuming we are able to entertain flow in a way that's truly spiritual. In other words, share, give, take. Allow others to exist. Don't hog it all. Don't operate from egoic levels. So why do I say these things? Because in a sense, the beginning of this year is also targeting these dynamics. And therefore, the beginning of this year, don't be surprised, as in January, if it continues to help you. And in one sense, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Because the beginning of the year is often a time when we're all looking at our plans, and we're going, okay, what do I want for the year ahead, etc., etc. But again, the first thing in that is to actually allow the divine to be real, whether you call it source, whether you call it universe. In other words, allow the source of flow to be real. Allow it to be intelligent in a way that it doesn't need your instructions. It doesn't mean you can't talk to it. It doesn't mean you can't ask it for things or even thank you very much, thank it for it. But the more that we think that the universe needs our input to activate, the more we're going to stand around waiting. If we know that flow is real, if we know flow is already happening, if we know that really our job is to get out of the river called flow, called life, get out of the middle of it, stop playing goalkeeper, stop trying to catch things, stop being watchful of it. Stand on the banks and watch life flow. The more room that you make room for life to flow and for you to witness that flow, the more choices and options you're going to have to select from on a more constant basis. So hopefully this helps to explain some more of the aspects of 3 that manifested in December. How do you do this? Essentially, you just take time and you let go. Come back, count what you've got. Count what you've done in a day, in a week. Don't have to be manic about it, but acknowledge it. Acknowledge that even if there's more to achieve or grow into or whatever those words are, you have been supported so far. Yeah, no matter how, shall we say, well or not. Yeah, it's been happening. Every step is a step forward. It's been happening. Every moment that you're alive is another chance to receive flow again. And so allow that to exist, allow the divine to exist, and make room for it to come in and deliver in the way that it knows you need, in a way that it knows it can, and in a way that really doesn't need your instructions at all. All the very best for January. I hope this little video has helped you somehow. Please get in contact, whether it's about asking for more on these levels or whether it's about booking a session in any way. My website, psychicandenergywork.com.au. You'll find my details there. Travel well, have a wonderful month, and Happy New Year.